Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Hassan Talks podcast. As part of the Sudanese creators, I'm super happy, I'm proud, and excited to announce the guest of today. His name is Omar Tom, but he's known for being called OT, and I'm just overwhelmed by having him on my podcast on the 29th episode of Hassan Talks. Today we're gonna dive into so many things. We're gonna talk how OT started as in the media sector and how things went from in 2015 from absolutely nothing to the amazing platform that Dukkan Media is having right now. Multiple podcasts, multiple international partners, and also helping others who are looking to helping content creators, to be specific, who want to do their own thing as well in the Middle East. So they established themselves as a brand that is taken as an example in our part of the world. So I'm super happy for that. And I will let him introduce himself. So if he needs an introduction, of course, Oti, go on.
I feel like no, man. I feel like it's fair to always reintroduce yourself because I always believe there's always people there that have not seen or experienced the work that we do. From Alhamdulillah, I mean, as of last week, we've done our 190th episode of the Dukkan show, which is nice. So okay, so real quick about me. As you said, Omar Tom, aka commonly known as OT. I'm the managing partner and co-founder of Dukkan Media, which is actually a marketing culture consultancy that we happen to do podcasts and content creation, but that was never the core pillar of the business. My background is actually in advertising. I used to and still do something called strategic planning in the world of marketing and advertising, which is pretty much I get paid for my opinion, and that opinion is backed up by a lot of research. I mean, tons of research, quantitative, qualitative information, market analysis, human behavior analysis, economic studies, sociopolitical studies, political research, to understand what impacts people's behaviors in certain ways, and why, for example, and why you'd buy certain brands of water. It could be as basic as what water you buy and you drink, all the way to what do you believe in? Are you you're a leftist? Are you a rightist? Are you conservative? Are you liberal? Are you religious? Are you, an atheist? Whatever it is, it's to understand why people behave and do what they do. And we usually use that to develop insights and analyses to understand human behavior better and see how we can connect that to brands to sell more products. That's in the broad sense what the role of a strategic planner is. You work with a creative team who are pretty much the minds of creating the ads, but your sole purpose and objective really for the most part is to inspire the creative team. Your job is to come up with information that makes it go like, that's great. Let's create a commercial or an ad or a campaign or a concept based on this. Your job is to get them excited about doing what they do. So that's in a nutshell what I do. So that's what it was in the advertising industry. I did that for a little less than 10 years. And then I started Dukkan Show while I worked with one of the largest agencies in the world. My experience was based between San Francisco and Dubai. And eventually, throughout the success of the podcast, I always knew I was going to do my own thing, but I didn't know what it was going to be. I didn't know when was I going to do it. It was just one day, someday in my life, I will do something for me.
Okay, I want to know the exact moment in 2015 when you guys started. Where were you? Were Burger King as so many
great.
people?
So no. So actually, when I started, I remember clearly how we started the podcast because I was in San Francisco back in 2014. I finished my studies. I was working a little bit, and that's the time where Serial blew up. I don't know if you heard the podcast Serial by Sarah Koenig. Ira Glass was the consultant on it. Spectacular podcast. Everyone knows it. And that's when it blew up. And living in San Francisco, it's like hipster city. Everything that is internet-based trend is discovered first in San Francisco. So everywhere you went, any cafe, any park, any office, any event, either people are listening to Serial season 1 or talking about Serial. And that's what everyone was about. And, the credit, what Serial did was that it made podcast mainstream. Before that, podcast was not new, but not that many people knew about it. So for me, coming from a radio background, when I went to university, I worked part-time in radio. I thought podcast was the most exciting thing I've ever heard, because suddenly the rules, excuse me, the rules of radio didn't apply. I You can cuss, you can say whatever you want. It's unregulated, it's unregimented. You didn't need to have all these rules in place. I mean, I remember Radio 101, because it's national radio and it's government owned, there are so many rules. There's so
Of
many things you
course,
can and
of
cannot
course,
say,
yeah.
so many things you can and cannot do. And we were in a music radio station. So, for example, if I decided to play, you usually have a roster, your music playlist is set for you. Your interviews sometimes are set for you. Sometimes you can get creative with your interviews, and your talking points are preset. You got to talk about this brand. You got to announce this commercial. You got to announce the sponsorship. So everything is done for you. And
So your
it,
creativity is kind of limited after all.
not only that, most RJs are not allowed to say anything outside of the script.
Okay.
Like, your
Wow.
job depends on it. If you say something out of your script, or you talk about something that has not been permitted by the management, you can get fired on the spot. Like, that is radio.
So what you get to do is like play with your tone. That's it.
That all you get to do is, I have bullet points and I get to be creative on how I talk about it. So because the show was called The Edge, so it was like the cool, unusual show. And Danny, who was the main guy that ran the show back in the day, has been doing it for like 18, 19 years. So he had a good reputation with the radio station. We had the most freedom. Imagine, we had the most freedom, and I'm telling you
Crazy.
all this, right?
That's crazy.
So like,
Yeah.
most shows didn't have what we had. So we were like I don't know if I can cuss, right? But we're like the ish
Go for
in
it.
radio.
Yeah.
Okay, we're like the shit. We're like the coolest radio at the time. It was the edgiest. We're the only radio show that used to play music that was unheard of before on radio. We exclusively played The Weeknd when he first came out with High for This. Like, nobody ever heard of him.
Yeah.
And that was like
Yeah.
the first time when like the dark side of R&B was becoming a thing, like a new genre in music. So that was the show. So coming from that background, and then you're telling me, wait a second, I don't have to follow formats. I don't have to have IDs every 20 minutes. I don't have to have radio ads every 20 minutes. I don't have to watch millisecond. In radio, in front of you, there's this giant red clock, a digital clock that counts the milliseconds. So every second you're on air or off air is accounted for.
True. Yeah.
I don't have to worry about this anymore. I can say whatever I want, and I can edit everything in post-production later. It's not live anymore, right?
Okay.
So there were all these new benefits that were like, okay, this is cool. So I'm like, okay, I wanted to create something. Obviously didn't have an idea of what it was. I came back to Dubai for a job, and while I was there was this idea that I wanted to create. I'm like, okay, I want to create a podcast, but it's not a hip hop show, even though my background was like, and my passions came, to be hip hop inspired. I didn't want a hip hop radio show anymore. Like, that's not what we're trying to create. It needs to be something cultural for the people. So funny enough, I reached out to one of the most respected DJs I knew in Dubai, Ronnie Jax, one of the OG hip hop DJs. If you ever in the UAE, or you ask about the hip hop scene in the Middle East, Ronnie Jax is one of those DJs that was credited to building that back in the 90s. Amazing guy. I reached out to Ronnie. I've worked with Ronnie before. We did the clubs. I used to IMC the clubs, so we did the club circuits together. We've worked, and he was a radio DJ as well. So like, we spoke about it, and it's like, all right, cool, we'll work on it. And it kept getting delayed. And I'm an incredibly punctual and structured person when it comes to work.
Yeah, that's not Sudanese at all, by the way.
You know what? I like to believe at least it is Sudanese in some way, because I like to, I'm against the argument that this is not what Sudanese people do. Like, because then that leaves space for racism and
it does, but
microaggressions of people
sadly,
saying,
that's what we see.
you know, I think that's what we see in Sudan, because that is poverty. It's not because that's what people.
It is a result of so many things, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to say, it's not that this is how people are. No, it's the circumstances that you put them in, and the situations that forced such behaviors.
That's for sure. But that's basically stereotypes, like end results of generation of troubles.
So this is what you're saying. You're seeing a broken system, and then you're blaming it on the people, which sometimes there's a role to play, but not everybody is like that. And that's why I disagree with these structures, and I disagree with the labels, and I disagree with the negative stereotyping of it, because at least every Sudanese I've met in a professional sense has been up to par. At least I like to believe so. They're good and
Yeah,
bad, like
yeah,
every other nationality in the world. That's why I don't like saying, oh, Sudanese are just the
yeah.
best.
So
So anyway,
punctuality for you.
punctuality is a big deal for me. A structured to-do list, a structured system in place, a very clear methodology of doing things.
Mhm.
So when we come to do something, I'm like, and this is something I've learned working with creatives generally, and by no means any disrespect to any creatives or artists. A lot of them are my friends, and I love them. But artists like to work based on their moods. I don't have that. Whether I'm in a bad mood or a good mood, work is work and it needs to get done. We need to figure it out.
Mhm.
I to quote Anthony Bourdain, the chef and the traveler, may rest in peace. In his book Kitchen Confidentials, he actually starts with a great statement. He's like, there's like chefs are craftsmen, not artists. There's like the big difference between artists and craftsmen is that artists like to masturbate on their own ideas and they
Mhm.
only create art that fits their mindset and their mood and whenever they feel like it.
Yeah,
As
they
for
reach that
craftsmen,
level. Yeah. So
when you're a craftsman, you don't have the liberty of just doing things on your mood. You do it multiple times over and over. You keep practicing and perfecting your art constantly. So it's not based on mood, it's about perfection and the end result. So you're always working on your craft. And that's the differentiator between craftsmen and artists. So that's why I prefer working with craftsmen than
mhm.
working with artists. So anyway, I'm trying to like it's a long story, so I'm
Yeah, yeah,
trying
I
to
know, but this
keep it
is
as short as
quite
possible.
interesting actually. Yeah.
So so unfortunately with Ronnie Jacks, I've been chasing him and it wasn't working out. And I don't mean that with any disrespect. The guy was super busy. He had so much going on. And I'm like,
Yeah.
listen, man, I understand you're busy. It's okay. We don't have to do this today. We can talk about this another time. Eventually, I went to catch a hip hop show
Mhm. In
of these
Dubai.
two guys in Dubai,
Yeah.
who I love their music. I've attended their shows before. I interviewed them on radio before. They're called Diligent Thought. Diligent Thought are two guys, Gibberish, who his actual name is Irshad Aziz, and Toothless, Firas Ibrahim, Sudanese, a
Okay.
Sri Lankan and a Sudanese, two MCs, probably by far one of my favorite MCs out the Middle East ever, till date. These guys started back in my God early 2000s. In 2006, they became quite popular for a song called "Could It Be." They were on radio, and a fan heard them on radio who liked their music. He's like, I'm going to donate some like 15, 20,000 dirhams for you guys to make a music video. And this was 2006. Like, this was way back when.
Mhm.
So they became those guys in the Dubai hip hop scene and very well respected. So I caught one of their shows, and this was back in 2015 after I came back. And I was like, yo, I don't know why something told me to talk to them and ask them. After the show, I went backstage. We're hanging out, talking, and catching. Like I haven't seen people in so many years. I'm
Yeah.
like, by the way, have you guys ever heard of podcasting? I actually have a concept I'd like to do. I don't know if you'd be interested. And both of them were like, actually, yeah. Firas was talking about it. We should look into it. That we should catch up. And I'm like, all right, great. So Firas lived next to my old house. I'm like, perfect, bro. Let's hang out. We'll sit this Friday and knock it out the park. And that's how it started. This was back in September of 2015. And we started kicking it in October 2015 and working on the show.
Mhm.
Now, that was the birth of the Khan show. It was Firas's bedroom in Sharjah and a sound studio. And I remember one of the many reasons I asked them to do it was because I didn't have audio engineering experience. I don't know how to do sound engineering. Till today, by the way, I'm actually pretty good at sound engineering, but it's still basic. I'm not a pro
Mhm.
sound engineer. But these guys were good at it. This is
Yeah,
what
of
they
course.
did.
DJs
For us,
basically. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. For us was a music producer. We had one of our friends, Sulphonic Amir, who was a beat maker, and I brought these people together. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And we just started brainstorming and coming up with ideas and the different names and structures. And like clockwork, every weekend became dedicated to the show. Every Friday and
Mhm.
Saturday, we're in Firas's house from like 5, 6 p.m. until 7, 8 a.m. the next morning, nonstop. We're just like working on this, developing and concepts and ideating. Once we figured out what it is, we're like, okay, let's keep it authentic. Let's keep it real. We picked up our Zoom mic and we started hanging out outside of Dukkan the way we always did and recorded everything. So
Mhm.
the sound effects you hear in the intro, the music you hear in the jingle, everything was done by us. We did all of it.
Yeah.
We recorded ourselves. We recorded ourselves in the stores and in the supermarket. We recorded ourselves walking in the street. The the sirens you hear is an ambulance in Sharjah. Like everything was
It's not an
recorded by us.
effect. It's
None of it was
natural.
effects.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even the street noises that you used to hear as bed sounds over the conversation was recorded by us. It was not an effect that SFX that we
Yeah.
downloaded.
Yeah.
Everything was recorded first time. And so Phonic made the beat for us, which is the jingle of the show.
Mhm.
So that was our beginning. That's how we started. By January 2016, we released our first episode after recording about 45 different episodes that will never see the light of day because we were still learning how to do podcasts. I came
Okay.
from radio, but these guys are rappers. So, unlike you right now, sitting with a little bit of a distance from your mic, what would a rapper do? Their mouth is on the mic,
Yeah.
like,
Basically, yeah.
right? So like they had to unlearn all these old bad habits and like restructure things and learn how to,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
really, and I was the exact opposite. I was super structured. So how do I relax and
Yeah.
create a show that is actually not structured, even though it was super structured? Like everything in the show was deliberate and planned to the second. But to the listener, it needed to feel like it wasn't. It needed to feel free flowing.
So the combination is a bit dreamy to have. How can you
Yeah,
reach that? Yeah.
it was amazing. And we're like, okay, cool. So it's not a hip hop show. So we cannot just interview our friends in music, even though we wanted to interview all the DJs and all the rappers that we knew.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, it can't be a music show, so we'll diversify. So, for us, his best friend at the time worked for a makeup company. So we're like, okay, let's talk about fashion and beauty and skincare. And one of the biggest issues is like we're three dudes. We're like, we
Yeah.
need more female voices. So how do you
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
that? So these were all pieces of the puzzle, and there are things that I said that we're going to figure out over time. I didn't want it to be it was an all male masculine show.
Mhm.
And I remember at the beginning, I flagged to the team that I didn't want it to be all male. And we were looking for actually a female co-host. I had a dream scenario at the beginning where, okay, I wanted an Emirati female specifically. Reason because we by then we
Because of
figured out the
paperwork
show.
or what?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
The concept was that, okay, it's a show for third culture kids, right?
Mhm.
People who don't fit in and fit in everywhere at the same time. Kids of the diaspora, people who have had similar difficulties, similar experiences, similar troubles. That means that our issues in some ways are similar. So it didn't matter where you came from or what your background is. The whole point was the kind of was a safe space. It welcomes anybody and everybody. You have a home here. So if that's what I'm telling people, I needed to be real about the sense of home. And one of the things I learned from, a lot of Emirati friends I have is that the females always felt like second-class citizens, and they felt like they sometimes didn't belong, or at least they were treated unfairly. And this was back in the day, before the reform, before the changes of law, before things got better, right? So not to make it sound like it's still bad. Like this was years ago.
Yeah.
And especially that there's a community of half Emiratis. Half Emirati, half Lebanese, half American,
Mixed.
half Sudani, half whatever. Yeah. So, and they actually had a Facebook group back in the day. I don't know if it's still around, called the Hafis, where all these half Emiratis get together and they share experiences and stories where they don't feel like they're treated like foreigners.
Yeah.
So
The dilemma, basically, you all know.
So exactly, which is very similar again to what we experienced. I'm like, those are the people I need. Let me find them. And I had a lot of Emirati friends, and none of them wanted to be on the show, especially because like, yeah, bro, no.
So you've tried like asking 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
So eventually, the idea became, well, okay, any third culture gonna do that.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was still committed to this idea of I need to find the new Emirati boys. And another challenge that presented itself is that we used to record in Faraz's bedroom in Sharjah. Now imagine trying to invite a guest to his house. Hey, we're three guys recording a podcast in Sharjah. Would you mind coming to Faraz's house?
Very suspicious. No.
Very awkward. Like
Yeah.
dudes won't even make it, let alone trying to get a girl to come.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, we need to find a studio. So there are always these issues. But like my belief was always, let's start and something will happen. Somehow doors will unlock and we'll figure it out. Thankfully, like I assumed it did. Our first episodes released in Jan 2016, 20th of January specifically. And then fast forward to March, there's an event in Dubai called the Dubai Links, which is sort of the It's the largest advertising event in the Middle East. It's the Dubai Links is basically sort of an award ceremony. Think
Yeah.
of it like a gala dinner for the best advertising awards, just like Academy and Golden Globe and any other awards like BET Awards, whatever it is. But also before the awards night, there's a 3-day conference of talks, presentations, insights, experiences, and you get to meet brands and different people and celebrities and other agencies there. So I had the role of teaching something called the Leo Academy. So my company actually hosted an academy for students every year. So I would develop a workshop and a training for students. And that year, I decided after that, I took my mic and I walked around the event and started interviewing people just for the fun of it. And a friend was like, "Oh, you got to interview this girl. I think you guys you'll click. She's really cool." And that's how I met Reem. I interviewed
Nice.
Reem for like literally 3 minutes. It was like a 3-minute interview. But then after we stopped recording, Reem and I probably sat for like 4 hours talking. We just clicked on so many levels. We realized like we've never met each other before. We don't know each other, but it felt like we've been best friends for years. Like
Yeah, this happens. I think everybody who's listening to this know that conversation with that specific person. We just click. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's it. Like you're all in, right?
Yeah.
And that was Reem and I. And the best part, turns out she has a video production company. And more importantly, her old partners at the time were a sound production studio and they had professional studios. I'm like, hey, so by the way, I'm actually looking for a space to record. So we made a barter deal. I was going to develop a new strategy for her company. And in return, she will, I have access to their sound studio after 6 p.m.
Exchange of benefits like back in the in the Stone Age, basically.
Straight up, you know what? I give you chicken, you give me water, bro. Like that's how we're gonna do. So that was it. And that's how it started.
Nice.
Now, by then, a lot of my time was dedicated to the podcast that I was not even paying much attention to my day job, where my lunch breaks became dedicated to it. As soon as it hits 6 p.m., I pack my bags, I leave, and I go to the studio. And even if we're not recording, I will just chill and work on Dukkan from her office.
I assume so, because this is something you're passionate about, something you always wanted to do for years and years since you've been like outside the UAE, you came back. So you've been trying to do this. Of course, you're passionate about it, but still you hold on to your job. Like you did not drop out or quit.
Not at all. And as we started getting better with the show, I started gaining momentum. And this is always say, like, subhanAllah, things happen for a reason and it's well timed. You have no control of time of how things happen. As we start growing, we interview Reem on episode 15 on the show called Courage My Love, where she shares her story. Powerful episode.
Yeah.
And then after that episode, for us and Jed, they're like, "Yo, OT, we got to get her on the show. She's got to be the co-host." Like they believed in Reem so much. I'm like, I don't know if Reem's the right person. I'm still looking for that Emirati. And they're like, "No, she's perfect." And I was like, you know what? Fine. We always had an agreement. Like if two people agree on something, we'll go with it. And we went with it.
But why were you doubting? Is there something you want to say and you're afraid that Reem might listen to this?
No, not at all. Actually, like Reem and I are super transparent, and we have all kinds of talks about things. And I think at the time, it's just I was super obsessed with an image in my mind of I needed this half Emirati female, right? That was, and when you're like me, where when you build a structure and you're so systematic. I mean, I can show you. I mean, maybe someday I'll release those, but I have documents and notes and pages and paper and on Evernote and on my Apple Notes of just things I used to write back then of how this was meant to be developed and structured, right? Like I have detailed notes of these things. So when you've built something so detailed like that, any shift from it is like maybe
not what you want. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like that's not how I saw it. That's not exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
Mind you, Reem was perfect. Because half Iraqi, half Filipino, born in Manila, grew up for the first 10 years of her life between Iraq, Kuwait, and the Philippines. And then when she was, I think, 11 or 12, her family leaves to Canada. So she grew up in Canada. She's the eldest of her siblings. By the time she was 16, she was taking care of her family and going to school.
She
top
checks all the
graduate,
boxes of the immigrant
dude, everything.
person. Yeah.
A performing student,
Yeah.
right? Not only that, makes it to law school on her own merit. Like
Yeah.
she is, all the boxes are ticked.
Yeah.
But I was so obsessed that at the time I was blinded by my obsession. So I was like, eventually, I'm like, you know what, you guys, okay, let's do it. We'll do a test run. Let's get Reem on the show and see what happens. Reem joins, and at the time, unfortunately for us, loses his job, and he's looking for a job, and we couldn't. And the only job he found was another one similar to what he did, but in Malaysia.
Mm.
Packs his bags, moves to Malaysia. Unfortunately for us, he's not a voice on the show anymore, but that was okay because for us was our sound engineer, and he was the designer of the audio experience of the show. That was for us this thing. Anybody that loved the show back then,
Yeah.
it had nothing to do with me and everything to do with him, right? Because we record, we send him the audios, and he does everything. He decides what stories stay. He decides what's the structure. What was that going to be like? What's the audio experience? And that was the genius that was for us in that sense. Um, so he's in Malaysia doing that, and he had a day job. He was good. Everything's moving well. And if I remember correctly, by the summer of 2016, when for us this was by the fall 2016 for us. I was moving to Malaysia. Jib decides, you know what, I'm gonna go with him, take a vacation. I haven't had a vacation in a long time.
Yeah.
I'll help for us settle in, enjoy, kick back, relax, and come and do my thing. Jib goes. While Jib is in Malaysia, he unfortunately gets a call from his mother that his father is not well. He rushes back to Dubai, closes his apartment, sells his car, closes his bank account, closes everything, packs his bags, and moves back to Sri Lanka to be with his family. And that was a marker. And as I said, subhanAllah, the way timings work, if we didn't have Reem on board, I would have been doing the show alone. Now I have no co-hosts. I would have had sound engineering, like everything was a mess. Thankfully, Reem was around, so now Reem and I became the voice, not only the voice, but also the face, because Jib and for us were introverts. They're not, they don't like being public, whereas Reem and I are the exact opposite. We're super extroverted. We like to network. We like to be out with people. We're in events. We're doing stuff. We're being out in the city. And Reem was running a business. I was interested in doing that, and I was looking to building my own. And so we were very comfortable being public people. So now everybody started to catapult the Dukkan show profile, because they're seeing us everywhere. They're hearing our voices on the show.
Now it had an image, more like not like before.
Exactly. It's not just a sound, but an image that you can experience with us.
Yeah. But that's crazy actually, because usually podcasts is, I mean, the way we know podcasts is not like, people don't tend to look for an image, They just want to listen to something where they're cooking, as a background noise, as far as it goes,
Yeah, exactly. Right. Or they want to watch it as a YouTube video.
Yeah, like some people tell me that they listen to my podcast while they're cooking in the kitchen. I say, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. At least you're listening to it.
It's great. By the way, there are two activities that when people tell me or three activities actually that people tell me they do that I admire when you're listening to the show is if you're cooking, you're taking a shower, or you're stuck in traffic driving. Simply because those are three things for a lot of people you're in a state of flow. When you're in a state of flow, it's things you do without thinking. Like you don't think too much when you're driving. Driving is stressful, yes, but you don't think, okay, I am driving now. I am behind the steering wheel. I'm going to turn right. Like your mind doesn't do that. Your subconscious does that for you, right? Which is why I like it when you're driving. Or in the shower, again, it's a very peaceful state of mind when you're in your shower. So moments like that I enjoy. So if they're in the kitchen cooking and they choose to listen to your podcast instead of dancing around the kitchen to music, bruh, you're doing great.
Well, they don't get the details. Right? Sometimes I feel like I talk about some stuff and nobody listens to it because I don't know, like the sound of the knife cutting the onion gets it away. So
I get that. Yeah. I don't hold too much of that. I think I just the mindset makes you receptive to information, and that's what I like.
Yeah, well, maybe. I'm not like that. Usually, I don't listen to podcasts. Yeah. I want to concentrate on stuff and get the most of it.
Yeah,
people are different at the end of the day. Yeah.
Of course, I totally get that. Like for example, when I'm working on stuff that require attention and require me to be focused, I listen to instrumental. I listen to neo soul or things that I've heard so much before that will not interrupt my state of my chain of thought. But if I'm working on something creative, I'll listen to anything. I'll listen to podcasts or other songs or whatever it is. I'm indifferent. But anyway, so unfortunately, Allah yarhamu, Ershad's father passes away, and that took a toll on him emotionally, physically, mentally, and decides to. And it was very difficult, anyway. Like, and at the time, the whole point of Dukkan was to be an experience in the same place. So we never did any online recording. Like, that wasn't a thing. Dukkan into Gadin Mabab, you're sitting together outside, right? So we never did any online recording. So unfortunately, Jib decided that, okay, he's going to do his thing, take time for himself, and he's not going to be part of the show anymore. Things, unfortunately, started to get very difficult for Firas after about a year. In Malaysia, he lost his job. Things were all over the place. And I remember at the time, I was trying to get Firas to go to Sudan. I was like, look, I don't know anybody in Malaysia. I cannot do anything for you. But until I can, at the time, to give it context, by then I've quit my job and I decided to set up the business. It wasn't called Dukkan Media. I had a different name for it, which was actually Cause Culture. And the idea was that everything we did was to cause cultural impact.
And that's what you say in your website, we cause culture. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's where that actually came from. And the intention behind the company at the time was I knew strategy so well, but there were issues in the way the advertising industry operated that I disagreed with. And one of them was cultural understanding and cultural knowledge. When you're trying to communicate or work with a group of people, it's not just, hey, I'm advertising to Hassan, right? I'm advertising to Sudanese youth that are born in the UAE that tend to have the same interests.
Basically, that's a niche of,
yeah, and like skateboarding culture, hip hop culture, dance culture, like whatever it is, there's always cultures and subcultures of certain interests that you can target. And there's actually depth and lessons to be learned from it. So I deeply believe in that. And case in point, it's been proven by the success of the business. And alhamdulillah, we've done really, really well in that space, that we now consult for international businesses. We consult for public and private sector businesses. And that's our bread and butter. I got to work with brands I admired growing up. I got to work with the Nikes of the world. And,
I've seen that you guys have on your website, you work with Google, with YouTube, Nike, all the sneakers, sneakers and Sephora. What else? There's some.
Sephora. We were blessed, man. We worked with Audi, we worked with Nike, Sephora, Converse, Vice, Vans. What else? My goodness. Google, YouTube. We worked with blue chip companies. We worked with other consultancies abroad. We worked with telco companies. I mean, in the span of, what are we now, 4 or 5 years, our portfolio is incredible. We worked with businesses that, for the most part, are unattainable to access. So alhamdulillah,
I'm saying that is great. That is greatness itself. Like now, all the story that you've been telling, all the details, where you guys started from that bedroom or that apartment, then like recording and your friends, where they are trying to get a co-host to this. The journey is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I believe if you want to get into the details of each milestone and each setback and each punch in the face and each also
we'll never finish.
Like you can't count these. You can't count these. That's a lot for sure.
Not at all. I mean, dude, the number of setbacks and challenges we've had, dude, it's crazy. And sometimes they're as funny as we're recording an episode in my apartment in Dubai because an artist, a DJ cannot come to Sharjah, and you hear my brother coming back from work and cooking in the microwave and and it's terrible. And it could be something that simple and funny, and it could be things like, I was in a hospital, I had surgery, and now I need to record I need to record, but I can't. So now I'm dealing with the podcast production of things from a hospital bed. And that's the stuff we dealt with. I remember
why you have before you tell the story, I want to connect the story that you're gonna tell with my question. What makes you stay committed to something like this? Do you see the end result of it? So that's what I want to know,
bro. It's to be honest, it's ambition, man. I set. So it's so funny. Reem and I were talking about this the other day. And this is where we were mistaken, and now I'm changing it based on this.
Yeah.
When you look at the best of us in the world, the Elon Musks of the world, the Mark Zuckerbergs, so whatever, the most successful people. Even when you look at people like His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, or Sheikh Zayed, or any of the people that are admired in history, they all had a very interesting thing. They were all very present in the moment, but they set a North Star goal that is so far beyond their time that whatever they did, even if it's little bits, they know somehow it's leading them to that goal. And I mean, it's a goal that is so far that even after they die, that goal is still a big piece of who.
Yeah.
I never did that in that way. I always set milestones of 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I always make sure that I work towards that. Whereas their milestones, as I said, is a North Star that is so far that forces them to be so focused in what they do in the moment, knowing with the hopes that what I'm going to do now is somehow feeding the direction of that North Star. So mine wasn't the North Star, but mine was 5, 10, 15, 20-year plan. Not just for the show, but for my life. Like I
Of
had a
course.
structure of things I wanted to acquire. And that's what kept me going, the sense of ambition. And it's funny, as soon as I hit certain milestones, I'll scratch them off and write the next one. So it's not that we're here means it's
Yeah.
done. No, but what's
Yeah.
next? Right? Because their perfection is not real, but the pursuit of perfection is what brings you closer to it, as close as you can get. Right?
True.
And I remember reading somewhere that perfection is basically is a gap where what you see something as versus what it actually as, and perfection is that gap closing in, and it eventually becomes the one thing, right? So the gap between those two, the more you work on perfecting something, the closer they get together, but they never really become one.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the idea. So it's this pursuit of wanting to be better every single time. And that really is it, more than anything else. So now I'm looking to define this new North Star. What is your purpose? Why do you exist?
Yeah. The bigger
Right?
question, of course. Yeah.
This very vague, ambitious question, because I used to answer purposes for businesses and I used to do it for myself, but I realized they were not big enough.
Mhm.
I needed to write a new purpose and a new North Star that is so far beyond my time that even when I'm gone, that is still a viable option for people to keep whatever the thing we built running.
Yeah. So do you have an answer for that? Do you have an answer for that question?
No, I mean, that's what I'm currently redefining.
Yeah.
I have an old answer, but I disagree with it now, which is why
Yeah.
I'm not sharing it, because I'm like, it's irrelevant.
That's also crazy,
We're
like
working on
sometimes like you
redefining
believe
now.
in something and you defend it so much, sometimes you lose, I don't know, people, ideas, things around you for that thought. And you move along and then you look back at it, of course, from a bigger, different perspective with time. It's like, what the hell was that? That was crap.
Yeah, exactly.
But then you have to feel okay about that because in that place you felt like that and that was the decision for it. You move forward and that's normal.
Exactly. So in hindsight, you can't change things, but you can re-steer your ship to move forward,
Yeah.
right? So that's pretty much what kept me going. Like that's been the biggest factor.
Crazy.
So where would we stop? So yeah, so I think with overall, like that's kind of where we ended up with the show. Reem became not only a critical part of the show, but by the time I decided to quit, I remember I was going to the Cannes Lion Awards. So just like the Dubai Lynx, the Cannes Lions in France is the global awards for advertising.
Yeah.
This is the global gala of everything.
Yeah.
If you're in the advertising industry, that's where you want to be. You know, it's that event in the summer. So what's it called? I competed in a competition and I won tickets to go to the Cannes Lions. I submitted my resignation the day before my trip.
Last
Before
minute.
getting on the plane,
Yeah.
I submitted my resignation from my job because I knew going to the Cannes, I wanted to go as the Cannes. I didn't want to go as my old company name.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I gave in my resignation, and which was interesting because that same week when I gave in my resignation, Reem and her business partner took me out to dinner. And they're like, look, we have a budget for a salesperson to hire someone. We're thinking of hiring you, or we can use that budget to set up a new business. The decision's yours. What do you want to do? I'm like, hey, yo, you hit the nail on the head. I was like, I actually am submitting my resignation. I've been writing this email for 2 weeks
Yeah.
on wording how am I going to resign. I'm leaving to set up a new business. And I'm like, if you're willing to invest, let's make it happen. So Reem became an investor partner, and that was the beginning of the business.
Wow.
At the time, for the first year and a half, it was just one employee doing everything, which was myself. I was the
Yeah.
PRO, I was admin, I was finance, I was legal, I was strategy, I was sales, I
Just
was
like
the
the
janitor.
typical story of any startup out there, basically.
Bruh, I was cleaning dishes, I was doing
Yeah, yeah,
everything.
yeah. We all been
So
there, man. It's normal. That's completely normal.
that so that became it. So that was the start of the business. And
Yeah.
now we're 11, 12 man strong.
How many years it's been? 6 in total, or 5?
So I put in my resignation exactly in June 2016.
Okay.
So what are we now? We are today, as of this call, is the 21st of Feb 2021. So I've been running since.
That's a lot. That's a long thing. I want to say something.
Miss-
I want to say something like the Dukkan Media or Dukkan Show, the podcast that you guys put out there. Of course, you have your goals, you have your milestones, or like the checklist that you want to check and things that you want to reach, and like as you said, like being a leading in the industry and all this kind of stuff. The things that people like you things that don't realize that they're becoming role models for younger content creators or entrepreneurs or whatever. And this, like, sometimes you don't see this, like you focus on the big meetings, the big clients, and you don't see this, like,
At all.
this kind of people are following
Actually,
you. And I just want
so
to say that because I am one of those. Like, when I wanted to start the podcast, I had I started like the first or second episode, and I had no idea what to do. I just wanted to talk. I didn't even have the microphone. I'm not gonna repeat the story because I've been saying it on the podcast
I'm sure you
regularly.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just wanted to see a successful example of a multicultural or Sudanese podcaster who done something out there, so I can follow it. I don't like to follow like Joe Rogan or the big people. I like to follow people I can relate to. I feel like these
Your
people know my
likeness.
struggle. Yeah. So I've been just Googling around. Then I run into Dukkan Show. I said, oh, this is brilliant. This is nice. I see the way you guys put the website, the way you put your Instagram account, and I start following that. It's like, I just want to do like this, like this. So I've been learning
Oh,
from you.
wow.
And you guys, there must be multiple examples like me. And you guys
Dude,
have no idea
I
about
am
it.
humbled, man. I am humbled to hear that. My God. Wow, that is amazing. Like, dude, first, like, thank you so much for sharing that. Like, that means so much to
I've
me
been waiting
because,
to say this since I started the podcast, by the
dude,
way.
my goodness, like, man, I mean, I'm taken aback by this, honestly, because, like, that means so much. Because more than anything else, you're in the daily grind and you forget how much you're doing. Like, only today did I realize, holy shit, we did 190 episodes already. Like, I did not think we're doing that many. And also keeping in mind, we over the past 2 years, we did not do a good job in remaining consistent to every week because business demands, because client demands, paying the bills,
It's
you kind
life.
of get
Yeah.
swept in into all of it. Exactly, right? It was easy when I worked for somebody else because it's like, I don't care about you, I care about my show.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now I can't do that. I have to because now I am responsible to people. I always tell people like running a business is not about you anymore. It's about everybody else except you, right? It's about your staff. It's about their families. It's about making sure people's well-being, taking care of other people. It's about your clients. You serve everybody else but yourself. That's what running a business is. And in all of that, you forget. You get so caught up in it.
Yeah. I got
Things
swamped
fall.
by all of these, of course. Yeah.
Dude, if any of your to all your listeners, if anybody want to take on production and can be like, yo, where are you? You're supposed to record and send me audios today. Like, please come and produce this show for me because I sometimes I do a good job at it. Some months we have 4 episodes, other months we have only 1 episode. Sometimes we have not released episodes for 2, 3 months, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And consistency is key, correct? But also, making sure people have a roof over their head and can pay their bills is also more important. So That's how I
Yeah.
see it. And so yeah, if any of your listeners want to produce the show, please, you guys are more than welcome to
Okay,
submit
guys.
an
So
application.
by name, that's his name is OT, and you just can reach out. If you're in your, you do accept people from
Yo,
outside the country.
dude, all the time, slide in my DMs. It's
Yeah,
2021. Everything is online now. You don't even need to be in my office. I don't care.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
There's no
So
office
yo,
based
none.
work
But
anymore. How's that affected you, by the way, guys?
dude, alhamdulillah, man, like we did really well. At the beginning, obviously, it was very difficult. So we closed up. We not only did we close the office, but we shut it down completely. We
Mm,
gave the keys back to the landlord. We closed everything down. Everybody's going to work from home, and that's what we did for the most part. Um, only now have we're in new conversations. Like, okay, what's our new office space going to be like? And now I'm looking to design a completely different experience space.
mhm.
But the things that we were able to move online as business solutions, we moved it online, like post production, video editing, podcast solutions,
Yeah,
online section,
I'm interested in
consulting,
this, like, because I know
everything.
that you guys provide studios for those who want to record, and you've
We
built this
did, yeah.
huge place. Now,
We had
how are you gonna
yeah,
help these
exactly.
people?
Yeah, so we had our own in our office. We built our own studios that were by day operated as business studios, meaning we record voiceovers, radio ads, music jingles for TV commercials, that kind of stuff. And
Mm,
by night, my studio was dedicated to musicians that would come and work for free. So after 6 p.m., I had Tak, who's a very talented rapper, a Nubian Egyptian rapper and a sound engineer. He's a studio manager. He would record his friends. So the recipe would come, Shaybani, Tak, other rappers, musicians would come. They'll hang out in the studio and they make music, and I let them use the studio for free.
mm,
And that was our contribution to the culture. Like, and as I said, culture was a big thing for us. So a big part of what we did was we worked with businesses to help the businesses benefit, but also to nurture the culture. So for you to really understand the community or culture, this is how you should work with them. And we recommend execution plans that really help the people benefit.
mm.
Um, and in that same way, we did our part to help the musicians, to help the artists. Our office was sort of an open door house policy, if you will, for people that wanted to do things that matter.
Yeah.
Anything you want to do that matters, to music, to art, to design, to podcasting, to the business landscape. You have a tech idea, whatever it is. You're young, you're cool, you're creative, you want to do something that your heart beats for, we will find a way to make it happen for you. And that was a big part of our office policy. Obviously, unfortunately, all that closed down. So we had to get creative. Let's move anything we can online. Anything that cannot go online, let's kill it for now, and we'll figure out solutions later. The important thing is to survive.
Yeah.
And alhamdulillah, not only did we survive, but we thrived. I mean, by March to June were very difficult 3 months. By the time July and August came about, we started getting podcast production requirements from businesses. Today, we're producing more shows for businesses than our own shows. Like
Really? Like,
Dukkan Network, what do we have? We have 6 shows or 5 shows. We're producing more
yeah.
business shows for clients that we're creating for ourselves.
Oh, wow, that's
So
crazy.
alhamdulillah, yani we
Yeah.
started, we started to thrive in different ways. And the funny thing is, I never thought that I could make that much money off of podcasting because I was non-traditional. And Dukkan show, I didn't want to have advertising on the show at the beginning, right? I
Mhm.
wanted to find new ways to make money. We created other shows as I'm a big believer in R&D.
Yeah.
R&D everything. Try, fall,
Yeah.
break,
Research and development for
fail,
those who
and
are
do it
not.
again.
Yeah.
Yo, yeah, like do it over and over again. Research and develop every concept you have because it's such an untapped space. There are no rules of right or wrong of how to do things yet. It is not structured in that way. So do everything you can think of, let it fail, figure out what went wrong, and then do it again until you perfect
But
it.
there's something to say here, Omar. It's
Yeah,
it's very motivational to say that, but it's very hard to implement. To tell that to somebody who loses some money
dude,
or like loses, his job for
the hardest
this.
thing, the
Yeah, it's
hardest
it's not
thing.
easy.
Like for
That's why
us, my
successful
goodness,
people are not much, compared to the general public, let's say.
exactly. And that's the thing. Like R&D is not cheap, bro. Like I'm telling you, I lost a lot of money in podcasting
Yeah.
between equipment that I had to buy. I have mics and cables, and let me tell you, when we first started podcasting, this was before there was a Zoom. We only had a Zoom H6, And we had
Yeah.
stage mics because the guys were rappers, so they had these handheld mics,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? We went to music stores and like little corner stores and found like, okay, this little conductor, I can plug 5 different headsets on 5 different channels, and then I can connect that cable to my Zoom H6 so all of us can have headsets and hear what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
right? Firas in his room would have his computer with a big TV screen. He had a MIDI keyboard, he had an MPC, he had old like tape deck recorders that connect sessions together. And that, like, bro, we have spent money on stuff, but also we have tested so many different ways. And it
Yeah.
was, if you do not have the passion and willingness to lose
You're not
so
gonna go
much,
through that trouble, no.
no way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like buying an XLR cable, okay, do I need a long cable? I don't know. Let's get a 3 meter cable.
Yeah.
Then realize that is way too long that you don't know where to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like you start to learn like random little lessons like that. Today, you want to be a podcaster, dude, it's so easy if you have a microphone and a good computer or on your phone and you're set,
Yeah.
dude, right? Like the solutions,
It's
man.
very different.
For
Yeah.
you to know that's the right arm and that's the right mic that you're using. I came from radio. The only mics and arms I've seen are the high-end, super expensive pieces
So yeah,
that we had no money
you
to
need to settle
afford.
down for these. Yeah. Yeah.
We couldn't afford anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't even buy new mics. We bought a lot of our stuff secondhand from other musicians, right?
Yeah.
And when I go to radio, I'd ask one of the engineers, like, "Hey, listen, do you have old cables you guys don't want? I can take for free."
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I did. That's the kind of stuff
You
we
do what
did.
you have to do, but like just to reach where you want to reach, or start the
That's it,
progress at least.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So R&D and failing is not easy, but nothing teaches you more than that. That is why today I can stand up in universities and teach.
Mm-hmm.
I've been even during COVID, I taught online, but pre-COVID, I will teach at the American University. I would guest lecture every semester. There was a bachelor program on the basics of podcasting, and I would guest lecture a master's program called the Opportunities in New Media that taught people from the media industry, those who worked in television and newspapers and magazines, who
Yeah.
already have jobs and have been doing this for like 20, 30 years, to understand new media and podcasting, right?
Yeah.
So like the only reason I can do that is because I know how I've failed so much that I actually know details that only technical sound engineers know, even though I'm not a sound engineer.
But yeah,
right?
you
Like,
know
but
it with experience, basically. Yeah. Yeah.
dude, a very painful experience, but we learned all these things, right?
Yeah. You gotta go through it. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, dude, the whole thing. And that's why today, like I tell people, like, look, definitely fail, but don't repeat my mistakes. Like, ask questions,
Mm-hmm.
ask people who have done it before you and how much they screwed up, because that will teach you so much of what not to do.
Yeah. Yeah. You can skip some holes that some people
You
fail
can
in
skip
before.
all the problems
Yeah.
and the mistakes that we've done. You'll be in a
Yeah.
much better place.
The problem is like with some stubborn people. No, I said like I want to test it myself, how it feels. Maybe these people don't know how to walk. I want to fall myself down, then I can get up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that's different. I just want to get into the next point and maybe
Go
just
for it. Go
try
for it.
to finalize with that, which is, since you talked about new media, let's talk about Clubhouse, the new
Yes.
audio platform that's been just
Dude.
exploding and getting everywhere out of nowhere. I heard about it
Right.
last week, and today everybody has it.
Are you on it?
Yeah, I am on it. Of course, I
Okay.
have to, man. You have to catch up. It's social
so
media. You have to catch
I
up.
love Clubhouse. So here's the thing. My mentor and great friend of mine, James Andrews, aka Key Influencer on all social media platforms.
Mhm.
So James Andrews used to be in the music business back in the day. He was an A&R. So he is the man behind Jazzy Jeff. He's the man behind Destiny's Child and many other musicians. He used to work with Columbia Records. And this was in the 90s. Made a lot of money in the dot-com era, left and started moving into the advertising industry and tech and VC. He's now a serial entrepreneur with many businesses. And, one of the OGs. I look up to this guy for a lot of things. And we talk a lot. So he actually got me on Clubhouse about 7, 8 months ago. He's like, "Hey,
Before it
have you
was
heard
cool,
of
huh?
Clubhouse?" Yeah, he's based in LA. And one morning he arrested me, like, "Hey, have you heard of this Clubhouse?" I'm like, "No, man." He's like, "Yo, you got to get on it. I'll send you an invite."
Yeah.
He sends me an invite. Back then, Clubhouse was so new that the only way it'll work is if you download something called Test Flight. Test Flight is an app that is used by app developers. So when they build apps and they want to test the apps to see if
Yeah.
it works and figure out bugs, you need test flight to test your app concept.
Okay.
So the only way Clubhouse worked was that you needed test flight, which is developer only.
Mm-hmm.
So it was beta, like it just started. And today, if you go to key influencer on Clubhouse, James has over 1 million followers already. Like he's the Clubhouse guy, right?
Yeah.
And I would, and for the most part, I only joined his sessions. He has a group called The Authenticated. I'll jump on his sessions. And I love Clubhouse because of it, because I would jump in and he's talking to entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, people in great business spaces, and and because he's black, so a lot of times there are the BIPOC business community
Yeah.
in the U.S., and I just sit and listen. I don't say anything. I don't contribute. I just let it play. It's like listening to radio, and I just listen. And sometimes I'll be with a pen and a pad and like writing down things that they've shared, which is amazing. And I've learned a lot from it. So
Yeah.
that was my introduction to Clubhouse, and now I love where it's going because
Yeah.
the other day I got invited to jump on a call.
Yeah, which was a
For
few days ago, I think, right? I've been following that.
yeah, so
Yeah.
there was one on the music scene in the UAE. I'm not a musician, but I have been part of it for so long, and I represent the business side of things.
Yeah.
So I was invited to speak on that, and I was invited to give advice on how to support musicians and how to help them, from how to work with brands and what are the terminologies and things like that. And then another call I was invited to, which was an amazing one. James has something called Culture and Code, weekly calls that he hosts about things he's interested in and people he's interested in. And I was honored to be invited into that because there was Her Excellency Noor Al-Kabi, who is the Minister of Culture in the UAE. There was Princess Maryam Al. Okay, I'm not gonna mention her last name because I can't actually remember it, but she's a Kuwaiti princess.
Mm-hmm.
There was obviously James. I was on the call. There was Dina, who is currently TI's manager and has been a big contributor to the Atlanta hip hop scene. She's VC. She's a venture capitalist and a big part of the Atlanta music scene. She has worked with Rick Ross and many other Atlanta-based artists. So she's a prominent figure in being the person behind the musicians.
Okay.
Right. Who else was there? There's Noah Rafford, who is the CEO of the Dubai Future Foundation. Like, incredible people have done incredible things in their career. So I was super honored to be part of that call and to get invited on it. And once you speak in such a caliber and in such a space, you're like, okay, now I get it. Now I understand Clubhouse in a way where it's like,
I'm
it
struggling.
makes people
I'm struggling to
accessible.
understand it, to be honest.
So here's the thing. It makes people accessible. Like, I found that the other day I saw a dead mouse, and I don't know who was it. We're on a Clubhouse session, and then another time there was Elon Musk on a Clubhouse session. It makes people accessible in a way social media didn't before, where they're on a call, they're talking, you can jump in and ask them questions directly. And here's the thing. For example, Elon Musk's assistant or publicist cannot pretend to be Elon Musk on Clubhouse, but they can do that on Twitter and social media. Elon Musk would have a social media team doing the work for him.
True.
Not on Clubhouse. If they're going to be there, because it's their voices, it's them out there speaking. So that's the part that I enjoyed. So there are great rooms and there are terrible rooms. I saw this one room about the Sudanese and Somali community in the US and Canada. It was a messy room. Everyone's talking over each other, and people were arguing. Like, okay,
it felt like I've seen some of these. I don't think that was the one. I've seen another one, which felt like the backyard of a Sudanese house, basically. On a Sunday when everybody's just hanging around. Ammo with the shy. Yeah, hey, shut up, man.
Right, exactly. And like people are shouting, and and it's like those Sudanese family political conversations where it gets like heated up. That's what it was. So I think when it's well organized, it's wonderful. When it's messy, it gets super messy. Some rooms are useless. Some rooms are funny. Some rooms are there.
It's a social media platform at the end of the day, yeah. But how you guys like in Dukkan are trying to get into that? Are you making your own rooms? Are you making your own sessions? What are your plans on this?
Not really at the moment. I'm using it as a learning tool. Like my first step of any R&D is research. We're not developing anything yet. This is research right now. So watch, listen, pay attention, absorb, and understand as much as possible.
But
And that's my
that's
current strategy.
okay. That's smart. I believe that's very smart. The thing is,
Yeah.
when there's something new that breaks out and everybody starts jumping on it, so they get their chance, they gain more followers before it becomes very difficult, like TikTok, or other platforms. So sometimes, like, studying these decisions, should I make a move now or just wait and see what happens? And it's
Exactly.
critical. It's not easy.
We have a mandate that we work by in Dukkan, and which is that it's more of a question rather than a mandate, and we ask ourselves this as individuals and as a business every time: am I causing impact or am I adding to the noise? And you answer that question
Mm.
honestly. If tomorrow the can show becomes the show that is adding to the noise, I will end the show and I will kill it instantly. If the answer is you're not causing impact, you don't do it.
There's too much noise out there already.
There's too much noise and there's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of people doing things who, by the way, some of them are better than me and much better than what we're doing. Let them do it. My
Mm.
contribution rather be exclusive and limited, but done correctly with impact and with purpose, rather than just let me be consistent and let me put content, let me put content.
Yeah.
Because of I understand that's what the algorithm forces people to do, but we made a very clear business decision to not give in to the algorithm. If it has
Yeah.
impact, we do it, because it all that it comes down to, and I'll be very, like, Hassan, as you were telling me earlier, of like when you were looking for references and people and you want to start a podcast and you saw what we did and that inspired you. That's what I want to have. That's what I want to build. I don't want to
Yeah.
do it. I don't want Hassan to come in and be like, yo, Dukkan is creating nonsense. Then I failed at what I do if Hassan feels like that,
I see that.
you know?
Yeah, that's fair
So
enough.
it
Fair
has to have
enough.
impact. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So that's how
Which
we look at
is
it.
that makes a lot of sense. The thing is, like, right now, it's more about the numbers, the followers, the streams, the views, the algorithm. What is like popped in your For You page? What's like hidden that you have to find and look for it. And yeah, true. Actually, I see so many great people who are not like on the feed. Like, you have to search and work hard to get them, and others who are doing nothing. For example, let's take TikTok as an example. There are some viral sounds that if you use in your videos, your video will get a lot of views, but then your video has absolutely no, not even I'm not gonna say value. It like you're shooting the video in the wrong way, you're using the wrong filter, there's nothing on
You
the
don't get
video
what
to
you want.
watch, but you're getting views, and then somehow
Right.
views and numbers are translated into success, you know.
Which I understand for business reasons it is. Like, um, for example, if you're a musician, I understand that you worry about your Spotify numbers. That makes sense because that means, do people like my music or not? That makes sense, right? I understand that if you are an artist or a designer, you want to get feedback on your visual style. But like that's why like I prefer to look at Behance.com if I'm looking to hire an artist,
Mhm.
because Behance.com is a platform strictly for artists where they put their portfolios, they put up their work, and I get to see what they do and I can choose to hire someone. I'm not going to hire you based on your Instagram followers. I could not care less. But for some of my clients who want to get more media attention, they want to work with people who have a set number of followers, because as a brand, that's all they want. They need your followers to see it,
Yeah.
right? We actually spoke with TikTok a few months back. TikTok reached out to us. They're starting to support podcasters now, and they have a hashtag, which is podcast on TikTok, and they have it a different one in Arabic. And we had a meet. They invited us to a meeting, and they're like, okay, we'll support you guys. We'll push your content and that. I'm like, okay, that's cool. We'll give it a shot. And we created TikTok videos, but I realized for me, it's too time consuming. There is and they're like, oh, the best way to stay relevant is to create 1 to 3 TikTok videos a day. I'm like, you know how much money I lose doing that? Like, no offense, but like
Yeah.
the amount of attention and time I will need to spend to create 1 to 3 TikTok videos a day, as opposed to focusing on my business, I lose a lot.
It's a tough
That
decision
I
that you have to
cannot do.
take, like either to jump
Uh,
on the train or
Opportunity cost.
yeah.
It's opportunity cost, right?
Yeah.
So I get it. Like, and this is why I don't say it, and I never say these things with any malice or any negative connotation against anybody, because yo, like, do your thing. That's your hustle. But
Yeah.
as I said at the beginning, my responsibility is to my staff. If my staff can do my TikTok for me, yo, go do it because that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
I'm down, right? But
Yeah.
unfortunately, we don't have the bandwidth. Like we don't have that
Well,
bandwidth
if
to be
they
able to
can
do all
dance, I
that.
think they can do it. It's not about it.
Yo, straight up,
Do
like you could
do the
dance, you could do
dances, and then you're
poetry.
good.
Amen, man. Like, yo, do it. I'm down for the dances, yo. Like, I would love to sit and do the dances as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, that's
I like
crazy.
it, you know.
That's crazy. That's
But yeah,
crazy.
it's a lot of time for me, so that's why
Yeah.
I opted out.
It is a lot of time, and I think like every single day there's a social platform that's getting out there and getting the attention of the people, and it's very time consuming. But the smart ones are taking advantage of that instead of it's the other way around. Like the platform takes
Yeah,
advantage of you, and I think that what matters.
exactly.
Yeah, I think that what matters, and I hope from this episode from today, anybody who's listening and who has an idea or something who's afraid to go for it or try it out, I hope OT has been an example to follow, an inspiration at least. At
I
least he
mean,
was
I
for
hope
me,
so.
so I would say that. So thank you so much for jumping on Hassan Talks podcast. I'll
Dude,
just
my
give you the room
pleasure,
to
man.
to conclude from your side.
Man, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored and I'm blessed to be here. Thank you for your time and like thank you for choosing to have me on the show. Thank you to your listeners for giving me their time and their attention for however the duration of this episode gonna
Yeah,
be when you release it. Because I really appreciate it because I think people choosing to give you their time and attention is probably the most valuable thing they can give you. And that's
absolutely.
something I am forever grateful for and I never take for granted. So thank you guys for that. I really appreciate it. Support Hassan, support the other podcasters, and support all the people out there doing a lot of hard work to push the word out and push their messages out. And by support, if y'all got cash to throw at them, go ahead. If not, share their content, like it, comment, do what you got to do online to
Yeah.
help spread the word for them because it's a lot of hard work. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much hard work goes into these things.
Yeah, true. I was on some episode I have to talk about how much work I put into this. So you've been talking about like having a co-host and your friends and stuff. I've been doing this by myself since day one,
Dude,
but
you're better than me. I said
I have it for a
you're
reason.
better than me.
I have it for a reason. I do it by myself. I think I'm maybe a little bit similar to you. I have some ideas in my head that has to be done in that exact order. Otherwise, it's not what I want, and that's why I do it by myself. But I do believe it's completely worth it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the journey itself worth it, not the end result at all.
Oh,
And that's
dude,
why I'm
definitely.
here.
It's always the journey, man. I love that. It's always the journey. And honestly, like, dude, as I said, like, you are better than me. Like, honestly, good for you because I tried to do this on my own. I'm like, I'm not built for that. I couldn't do it alone. So,
Yeah.
yo, like, that's amazing, man.
I appreciate you,
I love
OT. I
that you're doing
appreciate
that.
Omar Tom to be part of Sudanese creators on Hassan Talks podcast. Hope everybody's
Pleasure, man.
safe and doing well. And basically, we've reached the end of this episode. Check the rest, which is we have done so far 28 episodes so far. They are on YouTube's. Some of them are YouTube's. The rest are on the other podcast platforms. And that's all from today. Peace out.
Yeah. Peace.